Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So I've actually had the idea for this collab for a very long time and it's finally here for you folks. I've had the pleasure to work alongside Lady Dynamite Creates and Fairykin, and we bring you Colors Gone Wild. Okay, so the prompt I had for this project wasn't all that clear, but basically I wanted to bring together people to try to experiment with colors or try new things. I guess I missed art school or something, but well, ultimately we each made a doll that I think is absolutely worth your time, so make sure to go watch both of their videos when you're done with this one. Okay, so I started with an already prepped Monster High doll. This is a Frankie Stein. She has been previously washed, roughly sanded, and then covered with endless coats of lightly watered down acrylic paint in white. My main idea was to start with a neutral canvas and try to experiment with watercolor effects, but spoiler alert, this actually did not work at all. I was honestly hoping for interesting texture, and I was thinking of adding some tiny dried flowers and maybe create a character that would be a bit like a fairy or a nymph, and well, as you've seen the thumbnail, you already know that this project ultimately went in a completely different direction. Please don't mind my messy palette. I'm like a color hoarder, unable to get rid of all mixes of colors, just in case these might come in handy in the future. Please tell me I'm not the only one who does that. Anyways, this idea ended up not working, whatever ways I can put it. And I can think of so many reasons why, and I can also think of many ways I could have improved my chances of making it work. So while I struggle trying to give this doll skin tone, let's talk about it. Okay, so first up, dolls are made of plastic, which in itself is quite slippery. If you put a liquid on it, it's likely to separate and form pools and blobs. This is also a struggle that many doll artists will face while trying to repaint a doll body with acrylics. With a brush. With an airbrush it's not the same, but with a brush. So the trick with acrylics though is to make sure that you have good paint, but also to watch the ratio of water you mix in it. You could use undiluted paint too, but you risk it leaving a bumpy texture. So it takes a bit of practice, but you ultimately will get it quite easily. And using fine grit sandpaper all over the base doll first to roughen up the texture and also priming it will help you a ton. However, my pigment here in this project were watercolors and gouache in tubes. And the base of the doll, which is, well, painted with acrylics, is still very smooth. It started forming pools of pigment and color, especially when I picked up some paint mixes that had less water content. I could have gone slowly and built up texture one color at a time and use sealant, that is MSC, in between layers, but no, I wanted the colors to mix a bit, so yeah, this was a recipe for a muddy disaster. I am pretty sure that if I had used a doll that was in its natural colors, not covered in acrylics is what I mean, that only had been sanded and then primed with MSC prior to this stage, I would have worked better with, well, this technique I kinda tried, and it would have given me a more paper-like, lightly roughened and matte texture to work on. Because what you actually don't see here is me getting increasingly frustrated at things not looking or feeling the way I wanted, and it was even giving me dried blood effect at some places, even if some patches looked nice, and well, stubborn old me would not concede that starting over or use more sealant. So after a while I started adding a little bit of acrylic mixed in with my pigment, mainly white acrylic, just to give it more coverage and thicken my mixes a bit, and it started to look interesting again. However, I was still not having any of it, and I got increasingly frustrated once again trying to blend smoothly, and I was fighting the urge to go more pigmented or even less pigmented, and I could not make my own mind and commit to something. And then, as the chaotic little ADHD being that I am, I snapped, and I gave in to the chaos. I went full on acrylics and I started not caring much about smooth blending. And I mean, this is paint, not pastel, so might as well embrace the texture and not just the colors. So I used mainly pinks, and I went purple, almost blue in my shadows, and I used even a bit of yellow in the lightest parts. This is a color palette that is especially beautiful to me. At this point, I wasn't sure if I was still making a fairy or a nymph, and the more I looked at it, the more I was thinking, it was like, maybe I can go like galaxy. So, I mean, I named my channel Starlight Dream Dolls. So, of course, I like skies, galaxies, stars, nebulas, and all of that. So, why not? Why not embrace it? And yes, absolutely. I'm very impulsive, chaotic, and involved as a person, especially when I'm making art. And you remember that kid that got paint on their forehead in class? Well, that was me. In the end, I was left with this beautiful canvas to work on. Unsure where it would take me, but I was finally happy with it. And before you ask the reason why there is only one eye, is because I initially wanted to cover it with a big flower with dried leaves, perhaps, and I decided I was still going to keep the one eye look, but the idea of a big flower wasn't appealing anymore, so I was trying to think of another way what I was doing the limited face up, if I can say. I think I rushed the eye process a little bit, but it still turned out nicely though. Not my best if you ask me for my opinion. And well, also since I was actually going to commit to the galaxy theme now, I decided to use as my accent color the only shade I would be missing to be fully happy with a huge galaxy-like painting. And that was going to be teal. So now you know about the battle that I fought. And this happened mainly in the second half of December, which is a very stressful time for me. I am not fond of the holidays, to keep it simply. And so I've been also away from YouTube for about 6 months, and I apologize for just going silent. I am still in the process of transitioning, which is not easy, and my mental health has been suffering a little bit, which in turns flares up my friend fibromyalgia, and I've mainly just been very drained. I'm not sure because I have a very bad memory, but I think this is my first time saying on YouTube that I live with fibromyalgia, so I wasn't going to open up online about it a lot, mostly by fear of it attracting the wrong kind of attention. Pronunciation, Sasha, you can do it. But yeah, if this can have a positive impact, I don't know, you tell me. I really don't have it in me, like I don't have the drive to be a true activist, but I often do feel the need to speak out about what is important to me, so well, maybe. I don't know. Regardless, it does show up in my art. It being in a subtle way or not, it definitely does. It used to be easy to talk about myself, but here, it's hard now, so, well, I feel it's only right that I let my art speak for myself, so yeah, it's part of me after all, so enjoy. I ended up googling some constellations to add to my doll, both on her face and on her body. I'm not sure which ones I ended up using, but I think I have Cygnus and Scorpio, which is my zodiac sign by the way, or some major and a few others. And here, this is the finished face. I did use a bit of gold mica powder on the highlights just to get a bit of a sheen. And here is the body to go with it. It's all finished for the most part. I wanted to try to mirror the galaxy effect in the hair to some extent, so I made glued yarn wefts using mainly black but also some of the same colors that I use on the body. Sadly, I did not have any nice purple on hand, so I went with what I had. I actually started by gluing the part of the hair, which is not usually advised. Usually you would start from the bottom up, but I wanted to put extra care into making that part, so I started there. I am using matte Mod Podge as my glue, like usual, and I do sometimes use pins to hold the weft in place until they dry. Using needles here was especially risky, because after my battle against the paint, it meant that there was a whole lot of it on the doll, period. It was probably becoming pretty thick. That makes it easier for it to just peel or crease, especially if the soft vinyl of the head gets squished, so I had to be extra careful. When the first initial colorful wefts got dry, I added some black hair under it, until it got as thick as I needed it to be. And once that was done, I was just going to glue the rest of the hair weft like usual, starting from the bottom and slowly working my way up. And here, this is the doll all dried up and poofy. And then I went in with a soft boar bristle brush just to smooth everything out. By doing so, I also got rid of any hair that wasn't properly glued, and I got rid of some tangles. This brush is also very gentle, so it doesn't break and thin the fibers too much. I wanted to give her cute little side buns, or space buns as they were known in the day. And not because of the name, but just because I felt like it and I thought it would look rather cute on her. The bun is just a bonus. I also decided that I was still going to use flowers, but instead of going for the obvious ones, I picked up those little clusters. One of my friends said they look like fireworks, and I think they also look like stars a little bit. And like usual, Podge is my MVP. It's such a versatile product. 10/10 will highly recommend. I had tiny stars for nail art, so I used some of them as well. I also decided to give her a soft eyebrow after I put her bangs up. I was honestly becoming very happy with how cute she was. I glued some of those flower clusters on her body as well, and then for the bottom I went for a basic black panty. It's sewn on her permanently pretty tight just so I can use it as a base for, well, a little train. It looks very blue on camera, but in person I assure you this is much more teal than it is pure blue. After sewing on the train, I decided she was nearing completion. I didn't want it to cover the body paint more than necessary, so I simply added a few more gems and ribbons to finish the piece. And now you have it, folks. This is my take on Colors Gone Wild. I will be seeing you very soon as I have another collab dropping next month, and I am much excited about this one. So, well, thank you again for sticking up at my side despite my chaotic upload schedule, and I sure do hope that you've had wonderful holidays and that only the best is waiting for you in 2024. In the meantime though, please, as always, stay safe.